despite overwhelming scientific today. Welcome, Eleanor. Today we're going to delve into a crucial topic, the psychological barriers to climate action. Understanding these barriers is really vital because it helps us grasp why, despite overwhelming scientific consensus, there's often a disconnect between what people know about climate change and their actual behavior.
Thank you, Lila. I'm really looking forward to this. It's a subject I found quite perplexing, honestly, so I'm eager to understand the underlying psychological mechanisms better.
Excellent. Our goal is to explore what we call soft denial and the various cognitive and emotional factors that prevent effective action. Ultimately, we'll also touch on how we might begin overcoming this inaction. To begin, let's define soft denial. This concept describes a situation where individuals accept the scientific consensus on climate change but fail to translate that acceptance into action. It's a disconnect between knowledge and behavior.
So it's not outright rejection of the science, but rather an inaction despite understanding the facts. What are the primary psychological factors contributing to this disconnect?
Precisely. One significant factor involves ideological worldviews. These are deeply held beliefs and values that shape how individuals perceive and interpret information, including scientific data.
Are these worldviews often linked to political leanings or broader philosophical stances?
Yes, they frequently align with political affiliations and cultural identities. For example, certain ideologies may prioritize economic growth over environmental regulation, leading to a resistance to climate action even when the science is acknowledged.
That makes sense. How does distrust of experts play into this soft denial?
Distrust of experts is another critical component. If individuals do not trust the scientists or institutions presenting climate data, they are less likely to internalize the urgency or necessity of action, even if they don't explicitly deny the data itself.
So it's a barrier to engagement, even if the scientific facts are intellectually accepted. What other psychological elements contribute to this inaction?
Beyond worldviews and distrust, feelings of powerlessness or fear are substantial contributors. When the scale of climate change feels overwhelming, individuals may experience a sense of futility, believing their actions won't make a difference.
And this feeling of powerlessness then leads to inaction as a coping mechanism, perhaps?
Exactly. It can manifest as a form of psychological disengagement, where the individual avoids confronting the issue because it evokes anxiety or a sense of helplessness. This avoidance then reinforces inaction.
I see. You also mentioned social dimensions. How does social identity and political affiliation influence soft denial?
Social identity is profoundly influential. People often conform to the norms and beliefs of their social groups. If their primary social or political group downplays climate change or resists action, individuals within that group are more likely to adopt similar stances, regardless of their personal understanding of the science.
So it becomes a matter of group belonging and identity rather than purely scientific assessment?
Precisely. Political affiliation, in particular, heavily influences this phenomenon. Research indicates that exposure to denial narratives, often propagated by certain political entities, reduces intentions to engage in climate-positive behaviors.
So, to summarize, soft denial is when people accept climate science but don't act, driven by ideological worldviews, distrust of experts, feelings of powerlessness or fear, and strong influences from their social identity and political affiliation.
That is an accurate summary, Eleanor. These factors create a complex interplay that hinders effective climate action, even among those who are not outright climate deniers.
And this ultimately impacts public opinion and policy, leading to legislative inertia?
Yes, the collective impact of these psychological and social barriers significantly shapes public perception and policy. It results in decreased belief in the urgency of climate science and consequently legislative inertia, hindering efforts to combat climate change effectively.
Thank you, Lila. This breakdown clarifies the intricate psychological landscape behind climate inaction.
You're welcome, Eleanor. Understanding these dimensions is crucial for developing strategies to foster more informed discourse and effective policymaking. All right, Eleanor, to summarize our session on soft denial, we've established it's that critical gap between accepting climate science and actually acting on it. Remember, the key drivers are ideological worldviews, distrust of experts, feelings of powerlessness, and the strong influence of social identity and political affiliation. For your review, I'd suggest two things. First, try to map each of these psychological barriers to a specific real-world scenario or news event. Second, consider how these factors often intertwine rather than acting in isolation. That will help you understand the complexity for any exam questions.
That's very helpful, Layla. I'll definitely focus on those interconnections and try to generate some concrete examples. I particularly want to review the nuances of how political affiliation shapes these perceptions.
Excellent. For our next session, we'll pivot from understanding these barriers to exploring practical strategies and interventions for overcoming them, moving towards more effective climate action.